I'm delighted to be here with Billy Ward. Billy Ward is a global motorcycle adventurer and journalist, and we're here today at the Bike Shed Motorcycle Club in Shoreditch, which I have to say is a very, very cool venue.
No, it is very cool. Great to be here, Kate, thanks.
I wanted to talk to you today about, I suppose, your inspiration, your passions, your life, you know, how that's evolved around motorbikes and, you know, the amazing trips that you do in unexplored territories.
The motorcycle passion's always been there. I think what's different in my later years was the adventure side to that. Because motorcycles give you one thing for sure, this energy, this freedom, smell of the petrol, all of that kind of stuff, the smell of the exhaust. Yeah, yeah. But later on in life, you then realise actually you can add something else to that recipe, and that's travel and adventure. And then you bring them two things together, travel and motorcycles, and it's like a magic happens, you know?
Yeah, because you can smell everything and hear everything and feel it and see it.
Yeah,
so
it gives you an extra license to feel that you can connect with that community that you're riding through. And I think that equally works in a dodgy part of New York City, as well as it does in the Congo, something like that, you know.
It was much later on, really, having gone through a corporate career, that catalyst came, that then it became motorcycles being almost the epicenter of everything you do.
Yeah, I sort of went through a bit of a change, I suppose. So, and it wasn't a midlife crisis. I've had loads of them. I mean, like, I continue to have them. I mean, you come across a challenging period of your life, and you either let it crush you, and sometimes it can crush you. I actually got divorced, to be honest, and that was powerful sort of change in my life, and where you reanalyze everything, and maybe it's logical now, but for some reason I fell back to the motorcycle thing. The motorcycle was something that was like always in my life. My motorbike was in the garage, I got it out now and again and messed around on it and things like this, and that motorcycle became much more my friend, like much more something, you know, my roots, if you like, and whether it was going out for a ride, whether it was
well, maybe it was partly feeling yourself as well, you know, because that freedom, you do, other things fall away, don't they, when you're on a motorbike, that whole magic of freedom and independence and what you feel.
And that's when, that was probably where I started to really come together with the travel element and the motorcycle. The Dakar Rally was on, and I thought, what would be really cool would be to just follow the Dakar Rally all the way to Dakar, all the way to Senegal, and how cool would that be? And I remember just literally getting the bike packed, and I rode past my brother's house, and he was outside the house talking to some friends, and I pulled over and said, "Hi guys, I'm just heading off," and Paul said, "Oh, well, where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to Senegal, I'm going to follow the Dakar Rally," and he went, "Billy, I was only with you like 2 nights ago, and where did this come from?" I went, "Oh, it's just a quick, just thought of it." So I literally got on the bike and rode from Newcastle upon Tyne down through horrible motorways of cold rain, and right down through France, through Spain, crossed over to Morocco, and wow, and carried on. And I crossed over the Mauritanian border, and then the guy said, "You don't have, where is your visa?" And I went, this was like a late plan.
I'm on an adventure.
And I went,
like
visa, and he went, and I did a deal with this border guard for a few dollars, which a lot of people think is a really bad thing to do, but anyway, and did a deal, and next minute I'm in Mauritania with a visa in, you know, so I'm in now, yeah, and then carried on following all the way to Dakar, to the Senegal. I remember how scary it was as well. I tell you what I did when I was camping in Mauritania. I was so anxious. I mean, you know, I'd never done anything so radical before, and I was worried about what if someone steals my bike. So I'm camping on the edge of dunes, and I had a wire rope. So what I did is I put the wire around my ankle in my little tent, and put the other end of the wire rope around my motorcycle.
So if the motorcycle went, you'd go along on your back with it.
But what a ridiculous, I mean, I look back now and think, what a plonker. I mean, I had a bit of a revelation there though, because as I was doing that, as I was feeling them feelings of anxiety and fear, and but at the same time wrapped up in excitement.
Yeah, so many other emotions.
I just started to think, you know, lots of other people would love to perhaps do this, and I started to throw little seeds in my head about maybe whether I could get so good at doing that I could maybe help other people do it, and also maybe make a living out of it to some degree, you know, sort of, or have a different type of life, you know, instead of working in I worked in the corporate sector in a proper wedge. So I came back from that particular trip completely inspired, motivated, with loads of ideas buzzing around in my head about maybe I could carry on doing this, like, you know.
Do you think that trip really fueled that belief around how we learn so much more about ourselves, but also other people when we do literally broaden our horizons?
No, for sure, for sure. I mean, you know, it's about perspective, right? And when we're at home in our corporate job or truck driving job or van driving job or whatever it is that you do, you have a particular perspective on the world. That's where you are. You're here and you see this is the world, what you see. But when you start traveling, particularly motorcycle travel, I think being part of the environment, not looking out from a vehicle, your perspective widens. You know, that it's a cliche about, you know, travel broadens the mind, and it's not. It's actually real. Absolutely does.
Absolutely real.
You know, recently we went to, I got this lovely friend, a guy called Claudio von Planta. Now, for those of you who have come across a long way round, long way down and all that, Claudio was the cameraman from Long Way Round.
He was indeed.
He's an incredible, wacky, interesting, extremely talented bloke. So I'm having dinner with him in London a few months ago, and he says, Billy, he's Swiss. I can't do the Swiss thing, but he goes, Billy, why do you keep going to Africa, Central America? Why don't you go somewhere that has significance? And I was going, get out of here. What? And I said, well, such as? And he said, what about the Middle East? Why don't we ride to Mosul in Iraq, northern Iraq? The front line. Yes. And another glass of wine. Yeah, I'm up for, let's ride to Mosul, you know, so thinking that was the end of the meal, you know, and we'd all talk.
Wake up in the morning and
that's all rubbish, isn't it, you know, sort of. And 2 weeks later, this is how wacky this guy is, 2 weeks later I get an email, and the title is something about Kurdistan, northern Iraq, and I'd half sort of forgotten the conversation, but it was worse than just an email reminding me. It was the tickets for the flight to go to Iraq. And I went,
careful what you wish for.
Yeah, and I didn't even know whether I had calendar, you know, diary availability. He just booked the flights and sent me it. Yeah, anyway, long story short.
But isn't that great in life sometimes? When you really passionately want to do something and push your boundaries, but someone actually makes it happen, so you have to go with it.
Absolutely, yeah. And you can't bottle out.
No.
And I'm, you know, if I would have had more thought on that, maybe it mightn't have gone, you know. Mosul was under fire, like Mosul with, like, you know.
Absolutely.
And so next minute we're in Iraq. I didn't really know much about the Middle East at all. It wouldn't have really been on my radar apart from watching the news. And having, like, you know, 3 weeks in Kurdistan, speaking to ordinary people, speaking to soldiers, speaking to the Peshmerga army. Your perspective goes from this to this to this to this to this, and the more and more people you speak to, the more and more empathy you create, and you build up an understanding of, and then you really want to find out more, and you start to sort of build up this more interesting, more fulfilled view of what's going on.
In the adventures that you've had across the globe, both individually and with groups of people, you must have had your fair share of hairy days when things have fallen over, not gone to plan. How do you power through or progress through those days when it's really hard and everything's seemingly exited stage left?
Yeah. It might not even be power through, actually. Sometimes it's fumbled through, but you know, at the time it's a challenge, it's a problem, it's a disaster even, like. But it's actually, afterwards, when you look back at it, it was probably the best bit. I've definitely came to the conclusion that it's the challenges in life that either end up being incredible experiences, but you don't realize that till afterwards, or they're the catalyst to actually make a change. You look back and say, if it wasn't for that happening, if it wasn't for that problem, if it wasn't for that redundancy, I would never have opened that shop that I was going to open, or if it wasn't for that redundancy, I would never have gone on that holiday, and in that holiday I met this, or I discovered that. And you know, and we you know, the easy thing is that life isn't easy. You know, life isn't easy. It's always a challenge.
Absolutely.
And it's like going on the fairground, isn't it? Like, you know, some bits of the fairground will make you feel sick and you don't like it at all.
Amazing.
And then some of it's incredible, and you have to keep remembering that there will be incredible bits. It's a bit, You know, when you talk to people who are having a really hard time, and you have to remind them that you're having a really hard time now, but that's now, you know, and you will get through this, and there will be incredible times ahead. Exactly. And you don't see them yet, you know, you don't even think it's ever, my life's ruined.
That's great inspiration for people, isn't it? You know, seeing whatever's going on as the best, and maybe some of that's about being in the moment and being present with it. You know, even though it's hard and it's difficult, it's okay. I'm here, and it's horrid.
If you can get that little bit of inspiration, or a little bit of direction, or a little bit of support, makes such a difference.
Sort of finding a team that will lift you up, isn't it? And support you, or just help, or just say you need to do this.
Yeah. I've done this when I've been doing like a talk somewhere and I've been nervous, you know. I'm on in 10 minutes and I've got to go and talk about something, and I'm thinking, genie man, I don't know. I don't know whether and I've looked in the mirror and said, right, come on Billy, come on, you can do this. Let's do it. And that sounds so like really American, and
works.
Like kind of.
It's true. Absolutely. You know, in my job as a coach, it works. You know, your shoulders back, a deep breath, get centered, get pointed, and I think what it does is it gives you perhaps a bit of a facade around the self-belief, but then the real belief kicks in, doesn't it?
Yeah. And you know, it's all about levels, you know. It's about levels, about possibilities. So like on one level you think, I'm never going to be able to do that, you know. And then one day you find yourself, you've done that. And then you look up, it's like climbing mountains, you know, where you think you've got towards
the top. Out your comfort zone, and then another
and
discomfort zone,
and you think, wow, I'm never going to make that one. And then,
all of a sudden,
and that can be anything. For me, the kind of things we're talking about inspiration, about motivation, about looking ahead for horizons, having a target to aim towards, all of that comes together when you travel, I find. When you travel, it gives you questions, it gives you answers, it gives you different horizons, like, you know. So.
I think you have to be curious, though. You have to be curious right from the beginning, or you have to take that first step, or have someone behind you, the supporter, the member of your team that will push you to say, just go and do it, or take that tiny first step.
Yeah. That brings us back to, something that I think is quite crucial in our lives, and that is risk. Yeah. You know, I think we should all be taking risks all the time. I don't mean like walking a tightrope, and sort of, I mean, we should all be thinking...
But risks that are risks for us as individuals.
Yeah, risks that you can sort of, you can contemplate, you can think about something that you want to do, and you can think, but that's a risk, isn't it? And what if this happens, you know? You should never let that hold you back. No. What if this happens, you know? What if the other happens, you know?
Exactly. And where will that take you?
Nearly every job I've ever gone to, I've thought I couldn't do that job. Yeah. And luckily I've had people around me who said, Billy, you know what, you can do that job standing on your head, and I'm going, no, I don't.
But to your point earlier, those people are so important, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, because I think sometimes, you know, we have our self-belief, but that wavers, and actually when we can borrow it from someone else when our own has wavered, it just gives us that extra bit of confidence or whatever it is. What, you know, inspires you? Or is it that whole just, I don't know, curiosity and adventure and wanting to find out just new things?
I mean, loads of people inspire me. You know, you can name some of them, like the Ewan McGregor, the Charlie Borman thing, Austin Vince, Lois Price, Sam Manicom. These are all adventure people in the adventure motorcycle world who just go out and do stuff.
Yeah,
but there's equally arriving in some godforsaken village somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and then meeting some young people or old people or any people who are doing something and surviving. You know, I was in a small village in Africa where they were fixing a water pump that had broken. You know, a sort of village pump, and I arrived and they were all trying to fix it, and I was helping them fix it, and they were all thought it was hilarious. This white-haired white guy, and we were all working together, and we were probably there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours, and together. With no language, by the way, but together we all ended up getting this pump going.
That's wonderful.
And so them people were way inspirational. You know, them people, they were fixing this water pump.
That stays with you forever, doesn't it?
Oh,
those moments, those magical moments.
We had such a lovely time, and you know, and they took us into their houses afterwards, and we had beer, homemade beer in Africa. You really don't want to drink it, you know. That was inspirational. That wasn't like a celebrity inspirational. That was just.
But it's inspiration of people, isn't it? And people do amazing, extraordinary things.
All that there's so many all under the radar as well. So many people doing stuff.
So many under the radar. I've got teenagers, you've got teenagers, a little bit disillusioned, you know, don't know what they want to do, but equally I think that applies to all of us often, you know, at certain stages in life. But what advice would you give them?
Well, you know, sometimes people today, they have to have this big plan, you know, you do your O-levels, you do your A-levels, you do this exam, you go to university, you know, and sometimes there's a lot of pressure on, I found this, looking at my kids, so much academic pressure on them. But I've always tried to go a little bit the other way with them. When they come home from school, or when they've come home from school saying, you know, I've got my mocks and now I've got my A-levels, and I've always tried to say, I know that you're going to do well in your life. Your life is going to be pretty amazing, regardless of whether you get the A+ or the B or the C. And I always try and be a little bit of a counteraction by saying, look, first things first is do your best, keep on swimming, because in the hard days, you know, teenagers...
Well, resilience and independence and ability to push forward.
50, 60-year-olds, it's the same.
Yeah.
You know, these days that you think this is just so hard, you know, but you just got to keep on swimming. I always think of that fish thing, you know, that Disney fish. Keep on swimming, because, you know, it is hard, but you will get through it. And you've got to keep pushing forward, keep positive, look for opportunities. And it's not all about following the same path as everyone tells you to follow.
No.
You know, and
well, if anything, I think it's the bravery and the courage to follow your own path, even though sometimes you don't know what it is.
Sometimes the possibilities are beyond your scope of even thinking about them. You know,
well,
and then,
you look back and you think, gosh, if I'd thought I was doing this, you know, a couple of years ago, I'd have thought, no way.
Yeah.
And then it happens, and it's remarkable.
I never thought I was going to feel some of them experiences. And I've sat there and I do pinch myself. Yeah. I think the day you don't get that is when it's all over.
Yeah, exactly. It's been such a joy speaking with you. You're a huge inspiration. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but thank you. It's been good fun chatting about it. It's always good chatting about stuff.
Definitely.
Thank you.